Morning, Auto Lab listeners. Welcome to our new AACA member fans. Thanks to Alex Sultanis. I'm Mike Porcelli here in the Gold Shield headquarters, again with Jeff Alon.
Good morning, Mike. Nice to see you.
Jeff, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
And as always, we have Robert Erskine in Suffolk, England.
Very warm welcome to you on the other side of the pond. We're still here.
And we are here with a skeleton crew today to bring you the latest and greatest automotive news, answer any questions, bring you the latest information and some history, and introduce you to some of the most amazing people in the car world. You can reach us at Facebook, Autolab Radio on Facebook, or theautolabshow.com is our website. You can call us at 516-488-3225. Leave a message. We'll get back to you. Ask a question. We may cover it on the show here. But this week, we have a very special honor. Alex Sultanis, our resident card judge, AACA judge, and historian, and great guest finder. I think we give you a new title, Alex. You are the great guest finder, and you've done it again. Tell us who you've gotten us this week.
Guest today is a true legend in the car design world, designing 400 cars for Hollywood's biggest films. He's been featured on Jay Leno's Garage, the Speed Channel, Monster Garage, the Learning Channel, Velocity, Discovery Channels, you name it. He's literally been viewed 1 billion times. Yes, that's billion.
Billion, baby, billion.
That's it. And I'd love
Working
to
on a zillion.
introduce you to Fireball Tim. And welcome to Autolab, Fireball.
Thank you, guys. I'm exhausted just with that intro.
Sorry about that.
I'm not sure a zillion is next, but I guess I don't have anything else to do. But
Let's go for 2 billion.
Well,
Fire.
good. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Thanks for coming on. Fireball, it seems like creativity runs in your family. Your parents were writers, is that right?
They were, and actually one of them still is. So my dad's 94, and he still
Wow.
writes to this day. He hunt and pecks, which is amazing because, I think back when he first started in the 50s and 60s, maybe there wasn't people around, everyone's riding around on dinosaurs and stuff. So he was just hunting and pecking with his fingers. And you could work on 5 or 6 different TV shows at the same time, which is different than nowadays. But that creative spark just keeps flowing no matter how old you are.
Yeah. What type of shows did he work on?
He did everything. He original Twilight Zones, Outer Limits, Bonanza, Hawaii Five-0. He's probably one of the most published writers in Hollywood. He has 3,500 published pieces, which means that these are shows that made it to television. Did everything from Ben Casey to Marcus Welby, the new Twilight Zone. Just, if you Google him, Anthony Lawrence, you'll just see a tremendous body of work. And growing up around that type of person, and although my mom wasn't a writer at the time when I was young, she became a writer with him. You kind of have a standard. I didn't really have anything to compare it to other than our family, but my mom was the kind of woman that said, we'd all be in a station wagon and we're going to go to the movies, but before we do that, you're going to run down and you're going to go to that swim meet and hurry up and go get your first place medal. It was just kind of commonplace to expect the best. And then she'd say, but don't let me hear that you raced against guys your own age. So you're walking down the stairs, going to go and swim in the swim meet. It's like, okay, I'm 11. I gotta swim against 12 or 13-year-olds and I got to win. Okay. Cause I want to do that. Cause I want to go to the movies, so it just had kind of an expectation that, if you're going to start a project, you're always going to finish it. And if you're going to finish it, you're going to do your absolute best. And give it, go big. You're going to give it your all. And that just kind of stuck in me. And I think that's, a trait. I think that's good for anyone.
So your parents trained you well to be a great guest for us.
Well, I do my best. Cameras don't make me nervous. I think that's a plus. I enjoy doing shows, and I enjoy sharing not only my own stories, but certainly the stories of people that I've come across over the years. And in the same way, I've done shows similar to this before. We have a new show on YouTube, and we've done in excess of 2,500 episodes on YouTube of different automotive stories and things. And it's just great. It's such an amazing culture, automotive culture is, and it's so diverse. It reaches every shape and size human being. It's positive. It breeds kindness and love. It's an amazing culture.
Absolutely. When do you think you first got into cars as a kid?
Well, I mentioned this before that, my parents basically always gave me two things as a child, and that was some kind of diecast, whether it was Hot Wheels, Matchbox, Dinky, or Corgi, and art supplies. And I would get, a box of art supplies, and I just wanted to draw the cars, so I can't say I know exactly my first car, but I remember in 1971, I got a Ford GT and took it to Canada on a trip that we took, and it was just like that was my thing. None of my siblings, which we had 5 kids in our family, cared about cars. My parents didn't really care about cars. It was just kind of, and I think it's a common thing that kids kind of find their own path, their own passions. So I didn't have to worry about anybody, taking my cars or things like that.
Right.
And it just grew. It grew organically. It grew naturally. My collections grew. My love of design grew. So, I didn't want to draw Porsches and Chevys. I wanted to draw, cars that had rocket launchers, and cars that flew, and cars that looked like apples. And, the weird stuff, it was always about theme. It was always about creating, kids would come up to me because I would carry cards with me in my back pocket, and I would constantly get in trouble. And I wanted to go to detention because it was easier to draw in the back of detention than it was in my class. So any
You
chance
too?
I got, huh?
You too? That's what happened with me all the time.
Yeah. So
Me.
yeah,
The
it didn't
same
matter to
story.
me. Yeah, exactly. So, it was I feel that, the universe needed me to express in this way, and had a far greater plan than I ever knew. And I'm still to this day, my office is filled with diecast. I have a museum up in Oxnard that's filled with diecast. And I still go to the store and get excited when I have to buy new pens, or, I'm less excited if I buy them on Amazon, but it's easier, but I still love those two things. And that hasn't changed.
So if I understand you correctly, you invented the Transformers 50 years ago?
I don't know. That's interesting. My inspirations were guys like Richard Scarry, who had the books, Cars and Trucks and Things That Go. And there was very few people doing, books having to do with cars. My inspirations were movies, certainly, but I loved artists like Lion Decker, Virgil Finlay, Chris Foss. My mentor was Sid Mead, and Ron Cobb. Lots of just incredible artists that it wasn't so much about their sketching ability, it's about their thinking. Is that and my dad was an incredible conceptualist. He would, be able to come up with ideas that were Twilight Zone ideas off the cuff, and it was just amazing. So I love the idea of merging two things together that could not ever necessarily fit together. It was kind of like, if I pitched you guys a concept for a movie, you can get a visual. I'd say it's I Love Lucy meets Indiana Jones. And right off the way, you would know exactly what kind of movie that would be, right? So conceptually, I love the idea of taking an apple and the idea of a car, and what would that look like? And it would be driven by a worm, or if Batman had a car, a new car, or if he had a motorcycle, or if he had a plane, what would those things look like? And that was always exciting for me to delve into that ideology.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Sure.
Would you say that there's a bit of a subversive streak running through you, playfully, not sort of to be deliberately, hurtful? Because people who are very, very playful always mix things up.
Yeah, it's always a confusing idea to me, the idea of racism. It's very hard for me to understand that we're all on this ball. We're all floating out in the middle of space, all by ourselves, and we're at each other's throats all the time, and we're picking on each other because you guys wear purple shirts and I wear yellow, or I'm wearing pants and you're wearing shorts, or you guys are older or younger, or you're black, green, purple, yellow. You know what? I could never understand the conflicts, and I realized that the what keeps people having problems is, and to me, the true pandemic is fear. It's everyone's always afraid of, like, if I open up and I show people a side of me that I might get criticized or judged or things like that. And I think it's important that when you're playful and you create a sandbox for your life, and the only ante into the sandbox is your desire to play. Playgrounds are open for kids to come and play, yet they won't because they're afraid that they might not be accepted because they got buck teeth, or they got glasses, or they got, and I grew up getting with basically a target on my chest. And, I was small, I had red hair, I had braces, freckles, glasses, you name it, just, come over and kick my ass. That was the kind of the thing. And it was confusing to me that people would treat each other in that way. And I grew up in a very open family where concept was strong and acceptance was strong. And I had two gay brothers. I had a sister that never had a boyfriend, and it just I liked the idea to have fun, to bring joy not only into my life and to make quality choices about my thoughts, my words, and my actions that would lead to something that would be a blast, right? I mean, you guys know what it's like, that Friday is the greatest day on the planet because Saturday's a freaking car show, or Sunday's a car show. And we get excited to go do those things and to be with people that are like-minded. And,
Sure.
I want to fill my day, each day, with something I get to enjoy. And, today I have a book signing with Spike Feresten on the Malibu Pier. I get to drive a brand new Corvette onto the Malibu Pier, and I've never done that before. So I'm freaking excited about that. I think that's going to be a
Chevrolet,
blast.
baby, Chevrolet.
Another fun day adventure. There
Cool.
you go.
Yeah. So
More important than
George-
that, excuse me 1 second. I just need to know, the most important thing is, how is it to live next to Charlie Harper?
Charlie Harper.
Yeah, from 2.5 Men. He lives in Malibu, the whole show.
Well, Malibu is 26 miles long and 1 mile wide.
Right.
So I probably passed him 1,000 times. I haven't seen him yet. But I do know that Sylvester Stallone has had a house in front of me. And he used to walk out onto PCH and stop traffic just so his wife could back out onto PCH. And next door to him was Paris Hilton, and she would bring zebras on the beach for her party. So
That's got to be one hell of a beach, boy. I have to
yeah,
tell you.
it's just weird, man. It's just the town is filled with highly creative people. It's not uncommon to go to the store and to walk into the yogurt aisle and stand next to Dick Van Dyke, and he asks me, what's good? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess pineapple yogurt. That looks pretty good. He goes, great. He grabs it and he literally dances and sings down the aisle. I'm not kidding. I like, man, does he know that nobody's watching but me? It's
It doesn't matter.
To live that way.
No,
Live your life
but-
that way.
But there's something about that internal need to express in the same way that a pianist wants to play, or a guitarist, or someone wants to sing. We're all identical, yet we're all uniquely different is that we may look different, but we all essentially our substructure, our desire, our connection with source is the same. We all want to live a good life. We want to be happy. We want to give each other support and love. And there's just things that get in the way of that sometimes. For some people, and our prisons are incredibly filled. It's unfortunate. But cars are my thing, and the ability to express that in the way that I get to every day is really a joy. I'm very grateful for it.
Most of us car guys don't have those problems that you just listed, right?
Well, like Sylvester Stallone walking on PCH or something.
No, I mean,
Why does that not
car guys,
surprise me?
we're more accepting of everybody else in the car world.
I think so. And that's certainly something to be grateful for. And it's in the same way that, we're not cat people, we're not iguana people, we're dog people, But I don't know why that is, but I think that it's there's a like-mindedness that, we like going and talking to people and about what they've done to their cars. They're essentially pieces of art. They're designed by, Frank Stevenson's a friend of mine, and he designed the Ferrari FXX and the Maserati MC12. He was chief designer for McLaren, in stellar designer. And when you talk to someone like that, you really get an insight into the artistry of the creation of cars, something from concept to completion. It didn't exist here. And then 2 years later, you're driving it, And at the same time, there's a guy that will buy an old T-Bucket or a little Honda for $1,600, and he'll dump 60 grand into it over 5 years, and he gets this piece of art that's unique to him. And it's, to me, it's like walking through the Louvre,
Yeah.
only it's cars.
We can all relate to that.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah. And we were
I've
talking
always
about
said
it last
cars are
week.
art you can drive.
We were
Yeah.
talking about it last week. It's just
How did you
the level of different levels of interest in automobile. It's just from the repair industry, which I grew up in the automotive, repair industry, to you, which is design and everything in between. It's unlimited. It is.
Yes,
amazing.
it's interesting. Like the film industry, my son is a sculptor in the film industry. He just got finished working on Star Wars, and now he's on Black Panther 2, and he sculpts everything from rubble to buildings and different things like that. But there's every career that you can imagine is in the film industry. There's caterers, there's guys that are masseuses, there's guys that manufacture everything you can imagine. And the car world is very similar. There's people that are the impetus that design from the get-go. Then there's every manufacturer that creates every single part. There's people that do catering specifically for car events, and it just houses every kind of mentality that exists. But there's something really unique about the fact that we all just love each other, in our stories and our experiences. And you go to SEMA, and there's just every flavor and size that you can imagine, and everyone's just excited to be there, and to meet each other and to create possibilities. And that's really exciting thing to be able to be involved in.
Agreed.
Fireball, tell us how you got your start in designing movie cars, and we have a slideshow to show our audience of some of the cars you've done over the years. And you've done so many.
Sure. My first car, well, I grew up in a Hollywood family, so any chance I got to sketch for my parents if they were on a show or something, I would do that. But officially, my first car I did when I was in college at Art Center College of Design. And I literally answered an ad that was placed in the Transportation Design Board that said design a movie car. And it was a piece of paper that had little clips, little phone numbers at the bottom that were clipped, like you were going to rent an apartment, So I just saw it sitting there, and no one had taken anything. And I ripped it off, and I called the guy, and it ended up being the production designer for the movie Batman, and who was working with Tim Burton. And it was for the first Batmobile. The movie hadn't been greenlit or anything like that. And he said, "Hey, I just need some sketches for a Batmobile." And I'm like, well, okay, that's kind of weird, but I've never done that before. I'll do a couple of doodles. I did a couple of renderings for that, and probably about 8 or 9 months later, I got a call and said, "Hey, check this out." And I got photos and things of the car being built, and the movie ended up getting made. So when but up until then, as I mentioned, my mentor was Sid Mead, and Sid gave me some of the greatest advice. He said, anytime you draw a car, always draw an environment that the car is in, because you would never see, any of these cars without it reflecting some kind of personality or environment. So I decided I wanted to get into movies. I didn't know how. So I ended up going to Walt Disney Imagineering for about 3 years, which is where I met my wife, and designed every project, the vehicles from Indiana Jones to Autopia, the Autopia cars that drive around. Any automotive based project I could do at Imagineering, I did. So I had done the Batmobile, but I didn't really know how to get into the film industry. So I started doing commercials. One thing led to the next, and then my first movie was Lawnmower Man. And then I started doing vehicles at that point. I did Son of the Mask. I worked on Austin Powers, Gone in 60 Seconds, Knight Rider, Jurassic Park. A lot of times I was intermixing between designing vehicles and storyboarding. So I got to work with incredible directors like James Cameron, Ridley Scott, Guillermo del Toro, just a lot of, very diverse people. So it gave me a really interesting perspective on how to create style and theme. And I got a little bit of advice that helped me a lot when it comes to designing things, is that, if you guys are going to redo your kitchen in your house, and you have to kind of decide what you like, and then you got to present that to your wife, and she's got to approve, what you want to do. But that's really comes down to what you think looks good, what she thinks looks good, whether it's blue paint or yellow paint, things like that.
Is
But
she
when you
tougher
develop-
than the movie directors?
Huh?
Is she tougher than the movie directors?
No, yeah, yes. Wives are always the toughest. Absolutely the toughest, right? So if you can make them happy, then your life will continue. You're very fortunate. But if you start with theme and you say, you know what, I want to create a Mexican kitchen, or I want to create a mid-century modern kitchen, then when you start with theme, then it's easier to come onto the same page and say, well, we know that there's certain colors that are not mid-century, and there's certain colors that are. So, my wife and I, like we have our museum up in Oxnard. When it comes to different ecosystems that we develop at the museum, we start with theme, and everyone gets on the same page, and it's easier to develop conceptually something when you have a theme. Like, if you're going to write a Western movie, then you're not going to put spaceships in it unless it's cowboys and aliens, and that's the concept, right? But when you start with theme from the design standpoint, and you say, I'm going to do a supercar, or I'm going to do a minivan, then it helps to be able to achieve that process a little simpler.
Sounds like
So basically all these movie cars started with themes. So, Michael Knight from Knight Rider, the car obviously wasn't purple. So, there's certain themes that you can address, and that helps to make that process a little bit smoother.
Right. I know you've done design cars for SEMA, General Motors. You've even do cars for personal clients as well, like for their own personal cars. Is that right? Like Ben Affleck, I believe, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, that's, as with most, clients, the more information that you get. I'm actually working on a project right now that's there's an off-road company that's developing graphics and things for the company. So it's just a matter of asking the right questions, and you learn quickly that if you don't answer the questions, your workload can double or triple. And as an example of that, I was working with a high-level director. I won't mention who he is, but he gave me the script and said, okay, I want you to storyboard the first act, which is about 30 pages. Takes about a week and a half to 2 weeks to storyboard that amount of that body of work. He said, I got to go on location and shoot some stuff, and we'll take a look when you may get back. So this was early on, and I didn't really know the right questions to ask, and it was a very harsh learning experience. So when he got back and he flipped through the boards, he goes, "Oh, this is great, that's great, that's great." And this is back when there was no Xerox machines that allowed you to manipulate the boards in any way, or there's no digital technology. And he goes, "These are great, but there's only one thing. I'm really more of a left to right guy than a right to left guy." And I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? I don't know what you're saying. I might as well be talking Swahili to me. Right? Well, your first board, indicates that the character is moving left to right as opposed to right to left. And I think we should flop it. I really want to go left to right, or I really want to go this direction. And I'm like, okay. So he goes, so you really need to redo all the boards again, because changing the first board shifts the scene completely, and it gives it a completely different look. So I learned quickly to ask that question, to ask the question, are you a high and wide kind of guy or a low and wide kind of guy, person? Are you an action director? There's just certain questions that you ask that helps to long, so your workload doesn't accentuate. So and the client, and the same thing goes for if you're a builder, and you have a client that wants a new Mustang or a classic restored or things like that. The more questions that you can ask and understand the client, the better chance you have of hitting the target market outcome, to make them happy, and obviously to collect on your expertise. So but the best way to learn those things obviously is just the approach that you're going to screw up no matter what you do. Just expect to make a lot of mistakes, but do not look at those mistakes as something you suffer from, but something that you learn and expand and grow and become better at.
We call it client interrogation here in Queens, for sure.
So whether you're designing a kitchen or a car, you want to match it to the client's personality, correct?
Right, and that could be your wife, and that could be you. It all depends on the design process. The impetus with the design process, it's something that happens in the mind. It's something that the more that you understand the client, and their needs and the intricacies of them, you can't ask too many questions. So I would sit down and I would say to them, we're going to sit down for as long as it takes, so that I understand you better than you know yourself. And that allows me to explore, because in many cases you can ask a client, well, what color do you want this? And they're like, I don't know, taupe, beige, and people paint their houses tan and beige because they're afraid of color. They don't really know what it would be like to have a yellow or a purple house or things like that. But if you go down to the Caribbean, they don't have numbers on their houses. Each house is painted a different color. So when they give you directions, you go down the street to the turquoise house, make a left, hit the lime green house, second lime green house on the right, and then turn right. And on the third yellow house on the left. So they're not afraid of color. And that's one thing that I learned early on in school, is that one thing that Art Center did really well is it obliterates your fear of color, so that you really feel bold when you design, so that you can go in and paint your kitchen, a marigold yellow or a lime green or something really exciting, and not be afraid that it's going to destroy, the way it looks. So Kathy, my wife, and I are really bold when it comes to design and the way we approach things, and it's pretty fun that way.
Nice to see the Ford stuff that they're coming out with now. Finally came out with like a bunch of new and different colors. We were talking about that last week. It's totally agree. You need it.
Well, the car companies have their standard colors. Back in the day when Henry Ford said you can have any color you want as long as it's black. To the idea that the standard colors are white, some form of silver, black, maybe red. And then there's the fad colors, and the fad colors are the expressive ones for the unique people. They know they're not going to sell that many of them, but it might be like Jaguar came out with a Squadron Blue back in 1977, which was a really great, unique kind of blue, and it's just really interesting to see, the levels of subtleties, the millions of choices of color that they could express, and how they put those things together with the interior teams, and how they work together or don't work together in some cases. And like the Corvette I have right now is a misty red metallic, and it has a black and tan interior. And some people go like, "Oh my God, that's incredible!" And then other people look at it and go like, "Oh, I can't stand that tan in there. It doesn't go with the red." So you never know. You never know, people's approach on what they like. But
Great new car, that new vet, beautiful.
yeah, they did a great job, and
Yeah.
it fills a segment of the market that really was completely open. You can buy, I go to these shows here in Malibu, and we call them Ferraris and Lamborghinis Malibu taxis, because they're everywhere, and they come in all these different colors and stuff. But a lot of these guys, they'll drive to a dealership and they'll drop 150 to 250 and then drive straight to the car show from there. And with the Corvette, you can buy 5 of those, give them to all your friends, and go to the show as well. And people are going like, what is that? I was like, I've never seen that before. And I've been driving the car for the last week or so, and I haven't seen another C8 anywhere. And I've driven all over the place. But
Nothing like a Chevy V8. I got nothing like a little Chevy V8.
Yeah, well, I hate to say it, but in my line of business, I can't say I'm any particular type of car guy. I'm the guy that loves anything with 4 wheels. So it's really about, if you guys love everything from Morgans to Chevys to Mopar, it doesn't matter to me. If you love that, I think that's amazing. I've interviewed thousands of people about their cars, and it's always just the Ford guys. It's just the Ford guys that when you interview, within 10 to 20 seconds into the interview, they're letting the Chevy guys have it, right? so they're super passionate about their cars.
So true.
It's like nothing else matters, man. It's my Mustang.
So Fireball, you're talking about colors before. You're doing this whole series of coloring books, which I think is just so cool. You're introducing young kids to cars and to being creative with it. Tell us about these coloring books you're doing. I think it's great.
I appreciate that. So, a few years ago, when we started the idea of doing coloring books, the germ was that I spoke to a number of people, and they all said, "Oh yeah, coloring books suck. Nobody wants those anymore. They're old school. Nobody cares about coloring." And when someone says that, I kind of, my eyes light up like, yeah, there's nobody wants those because there's nothing cool. They all suck. They're all just like terrible. So, but what if they didn't? What if they were really amazing? What if they were like museum quality, great books that people could enjoy? You would introduce a whole new ideology to a segment of the market that doesn't even know they exist. Like kids today, if you buy a coloring book for them at a store, it's like 80 pages. They can't possibly complete the book, which is a part of it. The paper's terrible, and it's rainbows and ponies. It's just, it's not anything that's what we're excited about. So we decided to develop what we call hyper niched books that were, where we could identify at least 1 million people that might be into a specific automotive segment, and to feed them the absolute most spectacular book that we could envision. And Mustang was the first one that we did. And it just started to take off, to where we have 44 automotive books now. And we just finished doing Spike Ferriston, Tony Dow, who was Wally on Leave It to Beaver, is a very good friend of mine, Magnus Walker. We're working on Frank Stevenson next. We're working, with a lot of really amazing people to do autobiographical coloring books. And so they tell a story, they give you an insight to the type of personality these people are. And it's just really cool. It's really neat to work with neat people and to to give people something that is a low price point, but a high usage value, because the moment they color it in, it's no longer my art, it's theirs. And it's great to see what people come up with.
Are all those coloring books centered on cars?
Well, my wife does some ocean-based books. So we have mermaids and pirates and a lot of the ocean books, and those are all for sale as well. And that's her passion. You know, we live by the beach, and she's been a surfer since the 60s. And she has a tremendous history in the surfing culture, and she's been a designer for everywhere. You know, she's designed all the character costumes for Nintendo, the commercials, and she works with Ellen DeGeneres and a lot of interesting people. But
That's all
so we
great,
have
but
ocean-based.
Is she a car girl?
She'll tell you that she's not, although she's probably owned 5 Corvettes. So I think she probably is. And she's got a lot of, you know, great stories with the cars, and her best story is probably she had an 84 Corvette, which was the first year, basically in 83, of the Crossfire. And the only photos that we have of that car is with the hood up, which tells you, you know, kind of the personality of that particular car. So yeah, I think she's a car person. She loves the museum, and we work up there all the time. We go up 2 or 3 times a week to improve it and to do unique things. And yeah, it's just really a great place to live in Southern California, where the car culture is so vast. It's very strong here.
Your museum is open to the public?
Yes, it's open on the weekends on Saturday and Sunday. It's called the Murphy Auto Museum. And we have a collection of about 40 cars, mostly Americana, including Corvettes. We have an art gallery that features about 10 different automotive artisans, and a new art show, which I think is August 7th, is Gallery 3 that's coming. Tony Dow will be one of our artists as a sculptor. We have a tiki lounge. We have a Cars and Coffee that happens twice a month, the first and third Sundays, called Muscles and Mojo. We get a very vast collection of cars that come to that show for the free coffee and stuff. So it's a very active place, and people really enjoy it. It constantly evolves and grows, and it's different every time you come. So it's a neat place to hang out.
Very cool. How could people find it?
The website is murphyautomuseum.org, I think, if I'm not mistaken. You can Google it. It's pretty simple. But if you come to Southern California, and of course you want to go to Disneyland and do that kind of stuff, but come to the Murphy also, because it's kind of an automotive Disneyland, and just a lot to see. And we have a huge die-cast collection, as I mentioned, kind of like what you see behind me. Lots of cases and things like that. And you know, people will walk through the museum and they'll spend half an hour looking at the cars, which is cool, but they'll spend an hour and a half looking at the die-cast. You know, they'll stay there looking at that stuff all day. It's really cool.
I know you're going to a book signing soon. I know that you have a limited time with us, but I was just wondering, like, you're such a creative and fun person. Is there anything that you're doing that's up and coming that you want to share with our listeners?
Well,
New
right
project
now,
that you can talk about?
well, there's certain ones I can't, you know, but there's,
Sure.
you know, with the film industry is still not back where it was. So COVID has still kind of affected a lot of things. My son is working, which I'm happy about. But I don't have a film project that I can speak of at the moment. But, you know, we create a new coloring books. What was monthly, it's probably going to go bi-monthly now, about 6 new books a year. And I have a client that is a private client that I'm working on, that I'm not sure I can mention him yet, but I'm best not to. But he has a new off-road company where they take Land Rovers basically into the outback or wherever you are. So I'm developing logo systems and vehicle design for that. So, you know, there's always new stuff around the corner. So, you know, our main focus right now is the coloring books, and our website is fireballtim.com. So you can see pretty much all the new stuff that happens there. And we do a tremendous amount of car shows. So we have a schedule that's listed on the site and everything from, Southern California with Rodeo Drive to, the hoity-toity shows, which you guys know.
Mhm.
Bougie,
Those
bougie.
are like, right? And you see, and I'll hang out with Jay or with Bruce Meyer from the Peterson and the type of cars that you see there. It's not a hot rod show. And then to what I consider to be the real shows, which are the hot rod shows, everything from the sleds to the bombs to the lowriders to the car culture cars, the stuff that we really like. At least I personally love that stuff because that's really the art show. And we do about probably 50 shows a year.
Wow.
So there's a lot of stuff to feature and to, and of course we have SEMA coming up, Pebble Beach, and a lot of different neat things that are going on. So I'm very excited about summer.
Well,
Sounds
feel
like
free
you're
to
the
come on
busiest car guy
anytime.
there is.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Say it again.
Sounds like you're the busiest car guy there is.
Well, I'm busy, but there's, we got a team of guys that like to play in the sandbox. I wish you guys were out here. You could goof around with us.
We do too.
Yeah,
For sure.
Well,
but
When
we
my-
also,
when my-
I'm also
when
in
my
cahoots
car is
with.
finished, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But when my car is finally finished that I've been working on forever, I'm gonna be bringing it down your way, down up to the show circuit. So maybe you'll get to see it. That would be great.
Yeah. Well, the true test of a classic is, can it travel across the country? So that's, without,
its own.
I suppose if it breaks down, then you get to visit towns you didn't expect to visit. So that's cool too. But I did want to mention that we have a magazine also that's called Diecast Heroes. That's actually out of the UK, out of Hampstead Heath. There's a company, Superfly Autos, and they've created a magazine that's called Diecast Heroes, and it features Hot Wheels that are all customized from people around the world.
Oh,
So I handle the design for that magazine, and the next issue comes out on the 28th of this month. So you guys should, if you're into Hot Wheels or customization, like in regular cars, then you can see that having to do with Hot Wheels as well. It's pretty cool.
very
Fireball.
cool.
I'd just like to quickly add, did you know that Hampstead is the centre of playful creativeness in London originally?
Interesting.
And I know it
there's a
very
lot of
well. I used to live near there.
yeah, I know there's a lot of celebrities that live there, and
Yeah.
I haven't been there yet, but I'm as soon as COVID is over, hopefully, I will head out there and visit those guys and get a tour, and maybe we can meet up and have some,
Yeah.
maybe not coffee, maybe some tea.
English tea and crumpets.
There you go.
Robert is a
great.
very
Sounds great.
talented sculptor.
Say again.
I said Robert is a very talented sculptor. That's what he does.
Oh, great. Great.
Among
Love to see
other
that.
things.
Yeah, send me a link to
Other-
some of that stuff. I would love to see
You can,
that.
check me out on www.roberterskine.com.
Okay, I got it.
Really interesting hearing what you have to say, Fireball, especially about what I call the brief. If you don't have the brief and you don't understand what it is that you're being asked to create and design, as you said, you go round and round in circles and your workload triples.
Well, I think the
That's very
same can be
interesting.
said. Yeah, the same can be said with life, right? I mean, the people that are unhappy are people that feel that they're purposeless, is that they don't have a direction in their lives, and they can turn to drugs or a variety of things. Addictions is certainly, that problem. But, when you're fortunate enough to be able to identify your calling, identify something that you're passionate about, and to follow through with that, it leads to a life that I think all of us can share. The fact that we're very blessed to have a life where we love cars and we get to do fun things. But part of that realization of knowing that you get to do this, I feel there's an obligation to try and help others do the same. Is that there's a lot of unhappy people, and if there's a way that you can help through inspiration, through Autolab, through things like what we're doing here, by getting people to think that that focus helps, persistence helps, clarity. I tend to ask people, I'll do seminars sometimes and ask people, what do you do on the weekends? because during the week you got to work and you got to do stuff that maybe you don't like to do, but on the weekends, what do you do that's really fun? And why don't you make that your life? Grow that. So if you're a horticulturist, you like taking care of your plants. The quickest way to expanding your life, in my opinion, is through giving. Is give what you can, whether it's inspiration or whether it's your time, certainly your money sometimes, but just the idea of prosperity, the idea of love and joy and all good things. It makes people feel purposeful and gets them on the road that they need to be to experience what life has to offer. So although we live in the car world and we get to have that clarity, you run across people sometimes that are unhappy and that can't find that. And it'd be nice to be able to help in some way to be able to achieve those things.
Great message, Fireball. Great
Great
message.
I want to
Great
thank you
message.
for that message, because you just outlined the purpose of the Gold Shield here behind me. We are an organization trying to help veterans return home. Veterans come home, many of them lose their purpose when they come home. We all have a
Right.
great purpose when we're in the military, but when
Right.
some of us come home, they lose their purpose and they wind up committing suicide. It's like almost one every hour. So we're here to try and bring them back home with a purpose. And partly we're trying to connect veterans with car guys. We're visiting car shows this summer and connecting vets with car guys.
Yeah, it's interesting because some big problems that people have is not the fact that they're selfish, is that they're stuck in self, is that they when you I'm not a veteran and I can't even imagine the mindset of what someone has to go through and then try to come back to society and cope with it, all of our first world problems and and all these things. But when you out here in Malibu, there's a lot of addiction treatment centers, as you can imagine. There's like one on every corner, it seems. But the biggest message is about being of service. And when you're a veteran, you're focused on being of service, and you're giving your life or the potential of your life to something like that, and you feel very purposeful. But when people are struggling, at least in my experience, I've noticed that they're stuck in self. They're stuck in, well, how do I do this? How do I achieve this? How can, and everything, all the roads lead back to them and their anxiety about resolving issues. And what shifts that dramatically very quickly is to be of service, to say, how can I begin to help others to achieve their goals? And even on the smallest scale, it's like, how can I go and just pick up some trash, and it's very common for us to go down to the beach and just, not with the purpose of all the trash that people leave behind, and I don't want to sound, like a saint or anything. I got my own issues and challenges, but if you can try to lift your consciousness enough to say, who can I call today that might be going through a difficult time? Maybe someone had surgery. If you can try to pop your thought process out of self, constantly trying to make money, constantly trying to achieve your goals and think about others for a short period of time, I believe very strongly you're getting in connection with a source or an energy form that will help you expand and grow. And friends come and just amazing things happen when you stop thinking about yourself all the time and start thinking about helping others, so.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful.
And no, it works. And Mike, I'm very grateful. There's people out there like you that do that type of thing, because there's very few people like you, and there has to be someone that is a champion for that cause.
I will send you the information on Gold Shield, and we'd like to have you as an ambassador.
Sure, my pleasure. Anything. But I do got to get going, guys. I really appreciate spending some time with you, and hopefully we can meet in person.
Thank you,
Feel
Fireball.
free, if you're ever up to something that you want to talk about, promote or everything, feel free to come back again anytime you like. Right,
Real
guys?
quick,
Yeah, well, I wanna-
before you go, what is your YouTube channel?
Well, if you just type in Fireball Tim on YouTube, you're going to get Fireball Tim Lawrence. It's just my name. But we have had a number of shows over the years, and currently our show is called This Is My Ride, which is basically 30-second to a minute episodes featuring unique people and their cars. Monday's episode will be Tony Dow and his he has a black Corvair, which has a great story. So that episode will air on Monday. And then we did Magnus Walker. We'll probably do Spike today. So some fun people with cool cars.
Well, thank you very much. This has been tremendously educational and entertaining.
Great,
My
great
pleasure, guys.
information.
I hope
Thank
I can
so
meet you,
much.
but not only not maybe drive some cars with you guys too, which I think would be fun.
Oh, that'd be great,
Sounds
All right.
good.
for sure.
Thanks so
Truly
much,
guys.
Marvel, for coming on.
Okay, talk to you guys
Have a
soon.
great weekend.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, Alex, that you've outdone yourself. Another fabulous guest.
Yeah, excellent.
He's such
Wonderful.
a cool guy.
You do meet the nicest people at AACA, don't you?
I really, I tell you that I really do. I really do.
Speaking of the nicest people, we have one here every week in Robert Erskine, even though he's far away. He's right here every week. Robert, what have you got for us this week?
Well, Mike, first of all, Fireball, I thought was like an absolute fireball. Really, really fantastic. You just had to listen and learn. And so interesting that he's got
Tough
some
act to
other,
follow, right, Robert? Tough act to
Yeah,
follow.
yeah.
Talk about an appropriate name.
Yeah, well, he has some fascinating facets going on, and it's not just about design. You know, design isn't about self and just making things and trying to sell stuff. It's about making things better. And he was really, really focusing on that. So are we going to make things any better today about my topic, which is entitled Who Let the Cat Out? Now, those of you who know rock music and stuff like that will know that there's a great song called Who Let the Dog Out? But what are we talking about
Dun,
today?
dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. We are talking about catalytic converter thefts have doubled in a year on this side of the pond.
So are you
And-
talking about cat burglars?
Really.
well, you could call them cat burglars. I don't like to use bad language or to brand certain people, but I call these people morons. They're a group of very unpleasant people who are basically running around this part of the globe in jolly old England, getting underneath specific cars, which I'm going to touch upon, and ripping out the catalytic converters. Now, as a sculptor in welded and wrought non-ferrous metals myself, I am always fascinated by the properties of metals and rare metals, how they were discovered and used. And isn't mankind very, very clever that he's understood how rare metals work, can put them into a metal capsule, attach it to your muffler system or your exhaust system, as we call it here in England, and out of the back comes a much cleaner load of gases, which are not going to be as harmful if you didn't have a catalytic converter. The three-way catalytic converter, by the way, here's a little bit of homework for you to understand, was first patented by Volvo in 1976. But more to the point, there is a pandemic of catalytic converter thefts going on here in England, and the epicenter happens to be London. And why this is very simple, because London has the most number of SUVs and hybrids anywhere on this little island than anywhere else. Ask yourself the question why people have them, and that's another topic, because they're just driving these monster cars around on tarmac. They're not using them off-road. But the issue is that there is a shortage of two particular metals, and these metals are palladium and rhodium. These metals have fantastic properties. They're mined a lot in South Africa, and because of the COVID lockdown, mines have been shut. People haven't been mining. There's now an uptake in new car production, Although I mentioned this with a pinch of salt because there's also a chip shortage, which we touched upon, which means that car production is not up where it was. But nonetheless, people are going out and buying cars, and there is a shortage of these rare metals, palladium and rhodium. And to give you some idea as to really what this is about, an ounce of rhodium today is valued on the spot market at nearly 15,000 English pounds sterling. And an ounce of palladium is about 1,830 pounds. So
Really?
this is the reason why there are teams of unscrupulous so-and-sos equipping themselves with cordless angle grinders, which is a marvelous invention. You don't have to plug it into the mains. You can have a battery. You can use it anywhere you like. Who would have thought that the designer would have realized that his marvelous tool would be used under cars to get catalytic converters out? And in less than 2 minutes, you can usually take a catalytic converter out from under cars. Specific cars, and I'm going to wrap this up, are unfortunately, ready for this? Toyotas and Hondas. Toyota SUVs and hybrids have bigger catalytic converters than probably any other vehicle that's sold in Great Britain. And as a result, they're being targeted. And the way that they're targeted is that 2 or 3 guys turn up in a unmarked car. They get a jack out, they jack the car up, they tilt it over. One guy rolls underneath, gets the cordless angle grinder out, does a bit of sculpture, out drops the catalytic converter. In the car, they go and they disappear. And this is happening all the time. We had 13,500 thefts of catalytic converters here in London alone, which is the epicenter of the world's thefts for these things. And it's now spreading out across the country.
Robert, do you think that the victims of these cat thefts run out and buy electric cars so they don't have to go through it again?
Well, yes. Now, is it that the car manufacturers are paying these unscrupulous guys to go and do this with the sole aim of getting people to go and buy new electric cars? It's very, very possible. It's very, very possible. Why not? But it's a serious issue.
Robert, who's purchasing these cats?
Glad that you've asked the question. This is a mysterious one, Jerry, because what I've discovered is a lot of these catalytic converters are ending up on Facebook platforms, would you believe? They're also ending up on eBay, but a lot of them are going to unscrupulous metal scrap merchants who, although they're supposed to be monitored by the British government and Her Majesty's police, they are then selling these catalytic converters over to metal recyclers in the industry who are stripping out the rare metals and then selling them on to the catalytic converter manufacturers and other specific organizations who use these rare metals.
Perhaps these cat thieves would like to advertise on our Facebook page.
Yeah. If they'd like to leave their name and address and telephone number, and also provide a full photograph of themselves for easy identification, I'm sure we'll be very, very happy.
Is there something that car owners can do to stop this, to help? But I mean, you know, maybe this is something that people aren't thinking about until it all of a sudden they're a victim of it.
Well, herein lies the weak spot. So in answer to your question, Alex, very, very quickly, Toyota and Honda are so alarmed by what's happening here in Great Britain and across Europe that they're actually offering at a cost, basic minimum cost to the owner, a device which is called a cat guard, which you can get fitted at your local dealership. How good it is, how its efficacy works, I'm not entirely sure. I wasn't able to check that out, but you can get devices which are either high tensile welded steel cage or high tensile steel cables, which are placed in an arrangement underneath the car as a means of visually deterring whoever's going to roll under and do it, or to confuse them and that they can't get the cutting disc to a position where they're they're going to get the cat out of the car. The other thing you can do is you can park your car in a secure car park if possible. If you have to park it on the street, the police are advising you to park it up against a wall. I don't know how that's going to work because you're not allowed to park your car on the sidewalk to get near to a wall. That's against British law. You can also install CCTV according to the police, but the police then point out that this probably won't work anyway after you've gone and done it because most of the culprits are wearing masks in the first place. And they go and do this activity at nighttime. So they're real cattish behavior here. So you're kind of snookered. The final thing, which I think is a bit daft, is to go and get what we call here in Great Britain, smart water. This is an indelible fluid which you write on the underside of your car, or you can put it onto any object that you want to protect. It shows up under infrared light. And you can also get another material, which is a DNA-based solution, which you can paint on. The problem is most people are going to paint it on the cat, which gets very hot. And there's nothing to say that this material, which you've gone to so much trouble to paint on, isn't going to evaporate and burn off. So, Alex, the bottom line answer is this is a very difficult thing to do. I would say, if you're lucky, you've got a lock-up garage, put your car in the garage, because what the eye doesn't see, the brain doesn't know, and these thieves are not going to know that you have a Toyota or a Honda, which are the most
Robert, I think you and I should put our heads together and design something that will electrocute these thieves.
Well, yeah, because Mike, you take your car off to a British garage here, and particularly you've got a slightly older car, you're going to be given a bill of 1,200 English pounds plus the value added tax. Now, a lot of people with the older cars are just not going to get their car fixed. They're just going to write it off. So, it's a real pain, this one, and it is growing. It's becoming a pandemic, a cat pandemic.
Well,
Robert-
we've had that problem here in this country also, and we've reported on it several times in the past.
Yeah.
But speaking of real pains,
Yeah.
Russ Rader, he's not a pain, but he crashes cars and puts cars through a lot of pain, don't you, Russ?
What kind of
We do,
intro
and
is that?
Actually, I was going to comment on Robert's story there because, as you said, Mike, this is a real problem in the United States, and I've seen a number of news stories from U.S. news organizations that police departments have identified this as being such a major problem that they are having free catalytic converter theft clinics where you can come in and have for 10 or 15 minutes, the police will engrave or etch your vehicle identification number into the catalytic converter to deter the thieves, because that VIN number on the catalytic converter makes it more difficult to fence and sell the stolen item down the line. And I just noticed, I was Googling quickly while Robert was speaking, this clinic, Lancaster, Pennsylvania police just had a clinic last weekend. I don't know how many takers they had, but this is a real problem that's concentrated in areas with a lot of parked vehicles.
I think the cars need to come out with a new option where if somebody crawls under the car when it's parked, spikes come down and get them.
Right.
Russ, can I just
Yeah.
quickly add, very, very quickly, and for everybody listening, here in jolly old England, if your catalytic converter is not present on your vehicle or it's faulty, that is what's called a Ministry of Transport failure. You're not allowed to drive the car. So if you get stopped and a policeman does a spot check and finds that your cat isn't on your car, you get hit very, very, very severely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big problem. But we are talking about the Stinger. This is not a bee sting, but it's the Stinger from Kia, which is a large car, a large sporty car that we recently put through the paces, and it earns our Top Safety Pick Plus award. That means a vehicle that earns that award has to do well in all of the safety tests, almost a dozen different tests that we do, including 6 crash worthiness tests. And the Stinger does well in all those areas. Also in crash avoidance testing, vehicle to vehicle and vehicle pedestrian detection. The Stinger avoided the crashes, or at least substantially reduced the speed of the crash, which we also give credit to vehicles for that, because it means that they've reduced the severity of the impact. But the biggest thing that Kia has done with the Stinger for 2022 is they have dropped the Stinger's poor rated halogen headlights. And so that was the only headlight system on certain Stinger trim levels that earned a poor rating. And they've gotten rid of that, that halogen headlight package. And so now all of the headlights that are standard or available on the 2022 Stinger all get good or acceptable ratings in our headlights. And I was just looking to see, these are LED headlights that are now standard on all Stinger trim lines. And some of them earn good ratings and some of them earn acceptable ratings, but the poor rated halogen headlights are gone. And that's something that we're seeing with more and more vehicles, is that they are, the manufacturers are dropping the headlights that don't do as well in our tests. And that means that you can go to get a Kia Stinger at the dealership, if you can find one, with all of the shortages that everyone is experiencing now with the chip shortage. And it will be equipped with headlights that at least earn an acceptable rating in our tests.
So it sounds like halogens are history.
The halogens are history. And the manufacturers are stepping it up with the headlights, which is really important because half of all serious crashes that occur happen at night or at dawn or dusk. And we also have a very serious pedestrian collision problem in the United States. And a lot of those crashes happen at night. So better visibility can't hurt in reducing those crashes as well.
Or
It's
better
great.
trained pedestrians.
It's great to hear that all the manufacturers are starting to head in that direction, because it's been a long time coming and they've needed it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the manufacturers have sort of figured out their supply chain issues with the headlights and are, demanding of the suppliers that they offer these headlights that are top rated. And some of the manufacturers are asking us to do tests on our track of headlights haven't been released yet, to make sure that they're going to hit the mark. So that's all good news for people who do a lot of driving at night.
Speaking of good news, have you got a preview of what you're crashing next week?
Well, I know we're crashing some Mercedes models. One of the things that I'm excited to talk about, I hope I can talk about it soon on the show, is our new crash tests that are coming out, which will involve a new upgraded side impact test that takes into account the greater proportion of SUVs and pickups that are heavier on US roads. And we're going to update the side impact test to reflect that. So a lot of stuff coming. It's just hard to grab a hold of. That's been delayed by the pandemic, but we're getting there.
So does that mean you're going to raise the height of the impact point?
We are. Yeah, we're raising the front end, the simulated front end of that barrier, and we're going to increase the speed as well.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's a challenge for the manufacturers. And one of the things that we have to do with these tests is we don't just, willy-nilly build some new rig. We do a whole series, which we have been doing over the past year and a half, a whole series of tests using actual SUVs and pickups hitting the sides of vehicles to make sure that when we build this test buck that simulates a standardized SUV or pickup, that the crash itself resembles what we see in the real world. So that's what we've been working on all through the past year.
So to design the test, you're taking actual vehicles and crashing them together?
Yeah, there's a couple of things we have to do. One of them is we look at real world crashes and try to recreate those crashes in the lab to make sure that the damage that occurred in the real world is being replicated in the crashes that we do in the lab. And that involves, as you said, crashing actual SUVs and pickup trucks into other vehicles, just like would happen in a real crash on the road.
Can we come down and drive in your demolition derby?
Yes, you're invited to do that. As
Thank
soon as
you.
we're open for business, you
And
can
sell
come and
tickets.
drive.
You can finance the test by selling tickets to your demolition derby.
Well, we have that big covered dome, and we've been thinking about having rock concerts under there too, but we could do a demolition derby.
All right, let us know. We'll be there.
All right.
All right, Russ, thank you. Have a,
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
will you
Thanks,
be
Russ.
around on the 3rd of July?
I will.
You're not away for the holiday weekend.
I'm not away. I'll be around.
So you're really a dedicated crasher.
I'm a dedicated crasher. We don't take breaks, and the dummies don't take vacations.
Yeah, accidents never take a break, do they?
That's right.
All right, thank you, Russ. Have a good week. Alex Garrett. Should we take a break now? Do we have a break coming up?
Yes.
Okay. We'll be right back after the break.
To expedite research and treatments for various cancers. When you choose to shop Gold Shield, you'll be making a direct impact in the lives of veterans and their families, as well as people who suffer from cancer. Whether it's at your grocer, your barber, your insurance professional, your internet provider, gas station, or even your favorite coffee shop, you can be sure that every veteran and cancer victim in their darkest hour will be well cared for. Please shop Gold Shield and be assured that funds will go towards those who need it the most. We bury our loved ones every day, and we can't wait any longer, so please shop Gold Shield The Simple Truth, which supports cutting-edge treatment for veteran suicide prevention and expediting cancer research.
I hope everybody enjoyed that break, but not as much as you're going to enjoy what's coming up next. We're going to have a report from Alex Sultanis on what he did last weekend at AACA. We're going to hear from AAA with the latest holiday travel news, and we'll hear from our transmission guru shortly. Alex, tell us what you did last weekend at Saratoga for AACA.
Yeah, last weekend I wasn't on Autolab because I was up in Saratoga Springs at the Antique Automobile Club of America's Spring Nationals. I went up there with Constance Smith, who was a guest on our show. We had a lot of fun. The club always sets up a lot of great things for us on these types of events. On Friday, we went to they had a tour of the Jim Taylor Museum. It was a private tour. That was really amazing. He has about 140 cars under one roof. Very eclectic collection, very heavy on Jaguars, Shelbys. He had to get a 300 SL Roadster, wonderful Jaguar D-Type, if you're familiar with that. Steve McQueen actually owned one of those. Just to give you an idea, a Jaguar D-Type averages about $9 million, just to give you an idea.
Yeah.
He had Ferraris, trucks. He had the first car he ever owned. It was actually a Model T. It was the first car he ever owned. He had that. If you ever get to go up there,
He didn't buy it new, did he?
I don't think so. No, he did not. He was Jim Jim Taylor is a terrific guy. He really opened the doors to everybody. He was a really great guest, and he went around telling all the stories about each car. And some of the cars have really, really cool stories, which make you enjoy the car even more. That was great to do that. After that, we went to the Saratoga Museum, another great place to go. If anybody's up in the Saratoga area, you want to check that museum out. They had a very special exhibit, which I was so happy to see, called the Rare Air exhibit, which was all about very rare Porsches. And amazing collection of very early Porsche 356 Carreras. Hold on a minute. Sorry about that. And
Was that the AACA hotline?
yes, people are saying, talk more about the AACA guys. Anyway, the what this Porsche collection was, is it was a very large collection of Porsche 356 Carrera 4-cam cars, which are very scarce and one of the most difficult engines to restore. I think there's 2 people in the United States that can restore these motors. So all to see them all in one place like that was just really, really great. Also in the museum, they had a 1928 Franklin, which is an air-cooled vehicle, and this one was owned by Charles Lindbergh. So that was a really neat exhibit, and a lot of race cars, a lot of automobilia. After that, they had a barbecue in the back for us, which was, a lot of fun. So you get to hang out with other members and just have the barbecue.
That was at the Saratoga Museum?
That was at the Saratoga Museum. So like I said, these events have really great things set up for members. Wherever the show happens to be, there's always some cool stuff in that area, and they set up tours to go to these things, which makes it so much more fun to do. And
I've been wanting to go to Saratoga Museum for years because we see them at the Greater New York Auto Show every year. They come down
Sure.
with a few
They're
cars.
great guys. They know what they're doing. They got a nice board of directors there that they're changing the museum constantly to update it and new exhibits. So it's always changing. It's always worth a couple of trips there. And then Saturday morning, Constance and I, we got up, we were judging, and we was everybody. I tell you, when we went to judging school first, we took care of all those things. We got together with our judging teams. We had well over 400 cars there. The weather was perfect. There was like an electricity in the air. Everybody just was so into being at a car show. You could just feel it. Everybody just was just fun, nice day out. A lot of people with families, just checking out, little kids checking out the cool cars. And it's always fun to watch them drive in under their own power, 1908 Model Ts and things like that. That's just always a lot of fun for me to go see that. And I wanted to thank Tom Walsh and all the Saratoga region members for putting this on. There's a lot of work that goes on behind these things for us. And, they make it seem like it all just happens like magic because they do such a great job at any of these events. So, I was lucky enough when I did my judging. I was lucky enough I got put in the class. I believe the number was 36C and 36D, which was high performance cars, mostly Mopars. And I was judging GTX Hemi coupes and Plymouth Savoy convertibles were really wild dual carburetor setups, and 61 Chryslers, and just stunning cars. I saw Richard Lentinello there. We were hanging out from Hemmings Motor News with his new Crankshaft magazine. A lot of people were coming up and talking about his magazine with him and enjoying that. We're going to have Richard on at some point if he ever finally moves and gets a little less busy. But yeah, the show was great. There's always great things going on. Anybody could check out the AACA.org list of events. We got events going on all around the country. In fact, next year we got 2 big events going on in Puerto Rico. We even a big national event in Puerto Rico, which I could actually go there and judge cars and hang out in Puerto Rico. I mean, it's a big organization, so we're always having fun with the ACA. That's one thing for sure. So
You
Alex,
have any local events here in the New York area?
That was the main New York one, but there's chapters. That's the national club. So the AA, the Antique Automobile Club of America, has chapters in every single state, like including Puerto Rico. So places like Florida, I think they have like 20 different chapters. I mean, it's really amazing. So wherever you are local, you could also join the little local region there too. And they always, all the locals have small car gatherings. They have fun things they're doing. Our local does things. The New Jersey chapter does things like we're doing a drive to a nursing home with antique cars to have the seniors there and enjoy memories of their past of cool cars and that they remember. So that'll be fun. And there's also tours. We do tours all around the country too. There's, you could, anybody, if they go to AACA.org, you can see all the kinds of stuff that the AACA is up to. And I guarantee you there's something going on right in their own area because it's just like that.
All the car guys out there listening should go to AACA.org and become a member. I just rejoined after years of being away. Everybody should go join AACA.
Yeah,
Alex.
my understanding is there's something like almost 90% chance, almost 90% re-sign up rate for people to become members. So they must be like it.
We should make
Yeah,
Robert
right.
Erskine
Right.
an honorary member.
yeah, I'm champing at the bit here. Alex, can I just comment on something? Since you've joined us, you are full of the most amazing surprises. You sort of mention things as a gentle aside, such as, at one of the shows I've just been looking at, I just happened to walk past a little car, which was the Franklin air-cooled. It was owned by Lindbergh, and then you wander off onto some other. I mean, this is a really historic, important car, isn't it?
Absolutely. The story behind it's great.
I mean, talk about Porsche, not Porsche, as we say in England. It's Porsche and VW, all air-cooled engines. Or they were originally. Electrics coming along. Franklin, I think, was one of the very first to have a large capacity straight six air-cooled engine, which used a very fancy ducting, almost supercharger fan system, which blew air over the engine to keep it cool. And for those of you who want a little education lesson now, here we go. This system also pushed air into the carburation. So you had a double effect. Cooled the engine, also gave power. I mean, Alex, can you tell us a little bit more about Lindbergh's Franklin air-cooled?
Well, I don't want to give it all away. People need to really go to the museum, but he bought it new. He owned it for a long time, and he wanted to, it was going to be brought to a museum, and he actually drove the car from New Jersey all the way to Detroit personally to deliver the car to the museum. I think it was the Henry Ford Museum, if I'm not correct, if I may not be right on that, but it's when you're looking at a car, isn't it always about the story of the car and that makes you enjoy the car more? I mean, that's one of the things I love about going to these car shows, and particularly in judging. As a judge, I get to be more intimate with the owners of the cars. I could look at a car and really like it, but once you start to talk to people about it, I was talking to one guy, he goes, yeah, this car was won brand new in a poker game. I mean, these stories that you just hear, you just love it. So that's one of the things I love about judging, because you really get in to the deeper stories. And we're always learning things too. As judges, you can't know everything about every type of car. And if you're a car person, there's no better way than talking directly to the owners of cars to learn more about them, because the owners tend to know the cars better than everybody.
Very, very cool. Very cool. So you're still not going to tell me any more details about the Franklin air cooled.
I am not.
Good.
I am. That's it. But go see it at the Saratoga Museum. You know, we can go on. There's, like I said, there's so many cool cars to see. And that's another thing I love about these AACA events. You go to them, you never really know what's going to show up. You just don't. And it's always fresh. You know, it's not the same cars showing up every week or every show. And traveling around, you get to see stuff from different areas that you don't see normally. So, you know, I hope to travel. I mean, I can't imagine if I go down to Puerto Rico, what I'll see there. These guys are pretty hardcore car collectors over there. And they say they're really into it, and it's amazing. So that'll be fun in its own. Another adventure.
Very cool. Very cool. You know what this reminds me of? You said coming into contact with people, and it's the people and the story behind the car. I met a gentleman a few years ago here in London, and he'd bought a 1930 something Lincoln. I'm pretty sure that this was what the car was. Now, long story short, we just got talking about this car. And I said, you know, does this car have any history? He said, there's a rumor that it belonged to Al Capone. I said, really? He said, yes. He said, would you like to come and check it out? So another gentleman who used to be on our show, who may still come back, Bill Shaftman, he was in London at the time, and we arranged to meet, and we went to see this car, and we met the owner, and he told us this story, very intriguing. And there was the car parked up in a basement garage, heated and dry. Bill and I got into the back of the car. We spent an hour. We took some rear panels off, and there at the back of the car, guess what? Were a row of lead-filled bullet holes. So it seemed to connect up.
I've heard
You just
stories
never
like
know.
this before. That's right.
Just a passing conversation, met this guy, told me about this car, and I got hooked. So there was
And all of a sudden, you're
fascinating-
more interested in the car, aren't you? Because of
Much
that
more
little
interested.
tidbit you just learned,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, Alex, I just looked it up. Apparently, Charles Lindbergh gave the car to Henry Ford in 1940.
Right. It was the Ford Museum. You know, he
Yes.
drove it there personally. In typical Charles Lindbergh style, he's going to drive. You got to remember what year this was. I mean, he's driving this very old car. He's driving it from, New Jersey all the way to Detroit. That was a long trip back then.
1928 Franklin Airman Sports Sedan.
Yep. I like how he chose an air-cooled
Like an
car.
aircraft.
Yeah, he
He
flew
was
an
an
air-cooled
aircraft
plane
guy.
across the Atlantic, and he drove his air-cooled car across the country. What was that, Alex?
Wow. Alex was saying that there's a picture of the car on Facebook.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. So more adventures. You never know what you're going to see at a car show. And that's one of the reasons why I love going to these events, because there's just, I feel like lately I'm making up for lost time since I retired of just going out to so many shows and things.
I've been
You know,
to
it's
two
a lot of fun.
car shows in the last 2 weeks with Gold Shield, and met a lot of car guys, a lot of nice cars. I'm not a judge like you, Alex, so I just go
You
to
don't have
watch.
to be, as long as everybody was having a good time probably at that show, right? Right, Mike?
Yeah, the two shows was a great crowd, all good car guys, a lot of
Everybody's
support for veterans there. Car guys are veteran supporters, we find.
A lot of smiling faces at car shows always. Yep.
Jerry, have you been to any car shows this year yet?
Not yet. Not yet at all.
You gotta
I
get,
was
you
gonna
gotta
try to
get,
make the Belmore one, but missed that one.
you gotta get yourself a classic car and take Johanna cruising around.
Well, I have a classic wife.
Well, now you gotta get a classic car. And the two
Now you
of
got
you
to get two
cruising.
classic cars.
Yeah,
Mike,
one
you gotta
for me,
remember
one for him.
classic- Yeah.
Robert, have you been to car shows yet this year?
No,
You're locked down.
and I'm really irritated by this because here in Suffolk, we have endless, fantastic classic car shows, vintage car shows, steam fairs where we have British traction engines, you know, giant muscle steam powered traction engines doing their thing. It's such a wonderful atmosphere. And as Alex says, it's all about people, it's all about the stories, and you connect. It's fantastic. Answer is, Mike, no, they've all been shut down because of the pandemic.
So you've been deprived of wearing your helmet and goggles and scarf.
Helmet, goggles, scarf, getting out on my 55-year-old historic French motorbicane, mobilette, two-stroke moped, which I go to these shows to. No, it's terrible.
So Alex has told us about the AACA. What is the British equivalent?
Well,
Yeah.
I've told a little bit of a fib, actually, Mike. If I just jump in, there are a couple of shows coming off now in London. There's the exotic one at Scion Park, London, which is just outside Heathrow Airport. This is a concourse show, and I understand that millions of people are making their way down there, and there are one or two others. But over to Alex.
Yeah, but I'd love to see what you guys are up to over there. I mean, it's I'm sure the same way with you. I mean, it's funny. Whenever I've gone to Europe in the past, and the cars that I'm looking at, I'm all admired. I'm like flipping out. Wow, I never saw these before. And you know, people would ask me, "Oh, you're from the U.S.?" Like, "Oh, I love the big Cadillacs, and I love and it's funny. They don't get to see what we like, and you know, and vice versa. So fun going to different areas people are up to. You know,
Fantastic.
in Germany they got these little tiny micro cars, which are just the most wildest looking little fun things. They're so tiny. A Volkswagen Beetle is big compared to these things. And you know, we go there, we see these things, we're like shaking our head, you know, and they see it all the time. But they don't have a 69 Cadillac or a 59 Cadillac Eldorado. When they see that over there, it's like an aircraft carrier that's pulled into town, you know, when they see those. So it's always fun to see different things and watch people's reaction to things they haven't seen before. And you know, I love it. Yeah. You'll see, Robert, when things open up, you'll just be that much more, you'll enjoy it that much more because you've been away from it for a while. And that's how it's been over here. The reaction, everybody's just so happy to be out and about finally.
Definitely.
It'll come your way too.
All of these car meets and things like this, the key is people. The cars in many respects are secondary. It's the stories, it's the connection, it's meeting people who own them, how they discovered them, what they're about. You mentioned microcars. Microcars are a very, very big thing here in Europe for the simple reason that after the war, there were shortages of materials and gasoline. So engineers and designers had to quickly get everybody moving by using what was available and making things small and very light. And these vehicles now are worth tens of thousands of dollars, and they are fantastic. 20 of them can fit into a Cadillac easily.
Yeah. It's funny. You know, the other thing that we see, like when I go to car shows like a Hershey area, you'll see even motorcycles and different things. I don't know if you ever saw there's a little motorcycle that folds up. It folds up into a suitcase. Did you ever see that one?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You actually see, it looks like a suitcase with wheels on it, with handlebars that fold off of it. It all folds up into a case, and you can put it on a plane. So when you get off the plane, you can unfold this thing and drive off. I mean, there was a car they had that at the Saratoga show, which was a car designed for children. back in the early days. This little thing, it reminds me of a kid's snow sled with wire wheels on, and it was made for kids. I mean, you know, I guess, I don't know, driver's licenses back in the early days. I don't know what they were thinking, but that's what they did. So, you
Yeah.
know, it's always fun to see these things and listen. I like listening to them. I like listening and seeing and smelling these cars
Yeah.
and watching them come in, and people line up with chairs, watching them drive in, because all the cars have to drive in under their own power on the show field. So that's always a crowd favorite. In Hershey, people line up in the dark in the morning waiting for all the cars. They
Wow.
sit there with blankets,
So-
coffee, sitting there with chairs, waiting for the cars to roll past them in a long line to go in there. You know,
So how many
it's fun
cars
stuff.
break down along the way?
It happens. I mean, you got to remember, some of these cars are one-cylinder cars. I mean, you're talking about cars from the early 1900s. If they don't do very good in hills, especially if they're slow. Back in the day, the transmissions weren't like they were now.
No.
You had to build up momentum to get up a hill. If the line of cars is slowing down and you got to stop, you got to help assist these cars sometimes. So
Speaking of
Alex.
On their way.
transmissions, I wonder what happened to Jeff. He must be out
Alex.
working. He must be out working on a transmission. He's abandoned
yeah, his
us.
shop is busy over there.
Mike and Alex, I was just going to quickly throw in, if you haven't come to the London to Brighton run, which is known as the Emancipation Run here in England, 1896, the Red Flag Act was repealed here in England. That was the silly man who had to walk in front of a horseless carriage with a red flag, which was the speed at which the car that was following the man with the red flag was allowed to run. That was torn up in 1896. And every year we have a reincarnation of hundreds and hundreds of these fantastic cars from 1896 onwards up until 1900 and something, 1904, I think it is, 1916 maybe. All these cars have to run on their own power down from London to Brighton. It's not a race. It's an endurance to make sure that you do it. And it's fantastic. This is the greatest thing.
Robert, was there a competition to find the fastest red flag man?
Yes, it was probably being chased by a horseless carriage with a man holding a blunderbuss, which is a special shotgun. Yes, I'm pretty sure about that one, Mike.
All right. Well, here's one thing we can be sure of. Robert Sinclair has overcome his technical difficulties and found his way in here. Robert, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Excellent. Very good. That was nerve-wracking, but I'm glad to be with you. Yes, we've overcome our technical difficulties. I hear no Willie Nelson music, but that's okay because we're definitely going to be on the road.
Are you on the road right now?
I'm off the road. I'm by the side of the road, so
Okay.
I'm safe.
Good to see you're following AAA recommendations.
Absolutely. Yes. Walk the walk and talk the talk.
So speaking of AAA recommendations, what are your recommendations for this week?
Well, we're talking about the 4th of July holiday, which technically, or for a lot of people, starts Thursday, and it's going to be busy. It will be the second busiest 4th of July travel period on record. It's more than 47.7 million people will travel. Only the last normal year was busier, 2019. But what is record-setting this year is the number of people who will be driving to their destinations, because more than 91% will take their holiday trip as a road trip, and that means 43.6 million people will be driving. That's highest on record, 5% more than the previous high, which was 2019. And this is coming despite the highest gasoline prices in 7 years, and really a reflection of the pent-up travel demand that people have. And a lot of folks taking airplanes as well, 3.5 million. That's 90% of pre-pandemic levels. So we're getting back to those pre-pandemic levels. And the other category, which usually includes buses, trains, and cruise ships, is only at 620,000. And that's because cruising is only going to be on a limited basis, really starting the 1st of July, coming up this week. But that's going to be very, very limited. And they're doing a lot of test cruises and what have you. And, you know, they're sending ships out, making sure everybody has to be vaccinated. The crew has to be vaccinated. And there are lawsuits. You know, you can't say that. You can't mandate that. I think Florida sued the cruise lines that were demanding that everyone be vaccinated. So all that to say that it's going to be very, very busy. For the rest of the country, the top destinations are Orlando, Anaheim, Denver, Las Vegas, Seattle, Chicago, New York, Atlanta, Georgia, Boston, and Kapalui, Maui, Hawaii. But if you're from Long Island and New York City, you are going to Cape Cod, Newport Beach, the Jersey Shore, the Hamptons, or the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And that the shortest trip is going to be, well, I guess the shortest trip would be the Hamptons and the Jersey Shore. But if you go
Maybe you're going to those places. I'm not going anywhere.
Neither am I, Mike. I mean, neither am I. But, you know, despite the fact that gasoline is expensive as it is, and it's $3.18 in the city of New York and $3.14 a gallon in Long Island. If you gassed up on Long Island and you drove to Cape Cod and back, the gasoline would only cost you $60. So in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of money.
This meeting is being recorded.
So people are going to be spending some of that money they saved up by not driving over the last year. They'll be spending it
The
on food now.
so-called, yes, the so-called revenge travel, where people will take trips. In fact, we are seeing people that normally don't take a trip over the 4th of July holiday are taking a trip this year because of, again, that pent-up demand. But revenge travel, where people are taking trips that might not normally take them, those that take trips are going greater distances, they're staying longer, and they're spending more money because, indeed, they saved up a lot of money over the course of the pandemic. So it's, you know, really a harbinger of good things to come, because there are estimates that say that 4 out of 10 jobs have a direct or indirect link to travel. When people travel, they eat out at restaurants, they shop, they go to shows, they do all sorts of things, and that helps to stimulate the economy. So the fact that all these people are traveling and we're getting back to pre-pandemic levels, and the idea is that we'll probably even be beyond pre-pandemic levels once things return to normal is really a harbinger of good things for the economy. So
I think we're in the middle of a second pandemic, and that's duty. I think there's
the
one every
national
week gets killed.
Yeah, every 2 weeks. Yeah, the national, what is it? The Towing Museum, National Museum of Towing and Hall of Fame in Lookout Mountain, Tennessee, a tow truck museum, believe it or not, but they have the Wall of the Fallen, and they have placards showing the names of tow truck drivers that are killed in the line of duty, and a new placard goes up roughly every 2 weeks.
How appropriate. It's at Lookout Mountain, you know, to remind everybody to look out for the tow truck drivers.
Yeah.
A lot of people that work on the roads, the people, you know, they're doing all this construction work. They get hit by things flying, and things that the cars hit and flying. I mean, there's all kinds of accidents from that. It's very dangerous.
That's why fines are doubled. Speeding fines are doubled in work zones, because they're trying to protect those workers. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, folks will keep that in mind before they hit the road.
So Robert, you're not going away for the holiday. You'll be here with us next week.
Oh, very definitely. I will be with you next week.
All right. And you can.
He'll be here next week, broken down on the Long Island Expressway this time. No, I'm not wishing that on you.
Use its proper title, the Long Island Distress Way.
Yeah, the Long Island local way. Yeah, I took a transportation engineering course in college, and that was the exemplar of how not to do roadways. It's called expressway, but you have entrances and exits every 2 miles. That's not express. That's local. They should be spaced out every 10 to 12 miles. That's why you always see so much traffic on that road.
Okay, Robert, thank you very much. Enjoy your week, and we'll see you next Saturday.
Thank you very much for having me. Everyone, be safe.
If you
Get that-
survive the traffic, that is.
Yeah, get that vehicle ready for the trip. You don't want to be by the side of the road. Very, very dangerous.
So every holiday weekend, prior to every holiday weekend, when people like to travel with their vehicles, David Goldsmith always advises everybody to bring their cars in early for a checkup. But since he's not here this week, he's out traveling on family business. Jerry,
Yes,
tell
sir.
everybody why they should bring the cars into you Monday, not Friday, if they're going away for the weekend.
Just in case something is wrong with it. Like we said before, the parts are a little bit on the short end, hard to get them, and you may have to wait a couple of days to get some parts.
Anybody who is planning on taking a road trip needs to get the car checked out as early as possible. Should have done it already, but if you haven't, make sure you get in the shop Monday. Don't wait till Thursday or Friday, because then you won't be going on a road trip in your own vehicle. You're either going to be renting a car or walking.
I don't think you'd be able to rent the car.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. You probably can't even rent a car if you wait till the last minute. Yes.
Nothing can stop a fun trip faster than something that you should have prevented from the beginning and you knew about it. And then you're like, I should have checked it out.
They,
Ruin
they,
your whole weekend.
they put it off for the last minute.
Yeah. Well, I guess
I had-
we're all guilty of that, but.
I
we
had
need to do
one
better.
guy this week. I've already told him 3 months ago that his radiator was leaking, it was cracked. He finally fixed it.
And is he planning on taking a trip for the holiday?
I don't know, but I just said it's about time.
Robert Erskine,
I'm back again.
do you have a holiday coming up next week?
No, but I'm really intrigued about your holiday. I mean, I couldn't imagine 43.6 million people are hitting the highways. I mean, that is to say in Britain, oh my gosh.
And
I mean-
it's all to celebrate getting rid of you guys.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and there must be a lot of tea drinking. I would imagine. Anyway, my safety tip, my advanced driving safety tip for the week, I think is very, very apt for what you guys are going to be having such fun next week. I mean, you're all hitting the road at the same time. What joy. Well, here we go. Fundamental to advanced safe driving or advanced driving is what is known as the system. I will go on to the system in a few weeks' time, but key to this is something called the safe stopping distance rule. Sounds very, very British, doesn't it? But it works. So here it is. Never drive so fast that you cannot stop safely within the distance you can see to be clear. Give that a second to get into your brains. You must always be able to stop safely within the distance you can see to be clear. If that distance shortens, you must slow to match it. So what am I talking about? You're going down the road and you notice in the distance that there's a parked up vehicle, there's some lights that have come on, there's some parked vehicles, you're coming up to a junction, you're coming up to a bend. These are all hazards. Some of these hazards are real hazards, some of these are perceived hazards. If you continue driving fast and you then get up to what the hazard is, you won't have the time to stop in time. It's a very, very simple rule. It means that you've always got to look well in front of you. Go past the end of your nose, look past the end of your hood, look way into the distance constantly. So remember that you must be able to stop within the distance that you see to be clear. Very
Robert, I have mixed feelings about this rule because my
Why
wife
is
makes
that?
her living on people not following this rule.
You've always got to question what I'm telling you, but I can understand. Yeah, yeah.
She makes a living, when people don't follow that rule and cause collisions.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very, very basic thing, but it is key to driving safely, and particularly if you're all out on the roads next week and you're rushing to get to where you need to get to, make sure that the road is clear, adjust your speed.
That's
Don't wait till the
such a
last
polite
minute to
British
those brakes.
rule. We
It's a
have
very,
a different,
very good rule.
we have a different version here.
What
It's-
is
It's
that,
called
Mike?
back off, Buster.
Back off, Buster. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. Now I know why American cars have such huge fenders.
All right. So I think we have lost our transmission department. He may be suffering some gear trouble. We don't know.
Or he went off on his vacation early.
Ah,
Maybe he's one of those that got on the road early.
all right,
Lack of
well,
transmission oil.
It's
he
time
probably
for
helped
us,
us
it's
cause
time for us to say goodbye until next week. So Robert, what are your parting thoughts for this week?
Enjoy the new freedom that's coming along. Don't think for a minute that everything is 100% safe and you can just rush off and forget about the last year or so. So drive safely, limit your speed, just keep looking well ahead into the distance. Don't just look further than the edge of your hood. Look well beyond that and back to what I call the middle zone, and you'll be safe.
And Jerry and Johanna, what are your parting comments?
I would go with Robert. Take your time. When you get there, you'll get there. Whether you're going to be 10 minutes late or 5 minutes late, it doesn't make a difference. You'll get there as long as you get there in one piece.
You can get there
Exactly.
in your own vehicle or in an ambulance.
No,
Well,
the
the
ambulance won't
ambulance
drop you there.
The ambulance is a roundabout way. That actually will take you a lot longer.
Yeah. After intensive care.
Right.
All right.
Well, everybody.
Alex, what car shows are you hitting this weekend?
I am not hitting any car shows this week. I'm in Florida working on our condo.
Don't they have
here,
car shows in
and,
Florida?
yeah, we do, but not while you're working on a condo. So
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 you're gonna be
I,
suffering, you're gonna be
after this,
suffering
I'm-
car show
we're-
withdrawal this week?
no, not really, because I had such amazing car shows to go through recently. I've had my full. It'll hold me off for a little bit, but it's my plane trip home after this with my wife and I, Barbara, and we're heading home back to New Jersey after this.
And do you know when
So,
the next,
But I wanted to say that,
what's the next show you'll be attending?
I'm not even sure. I got to look at the schedule. I know the real big one that I'll.
The festivities started at Automat, started with a salute to veterans, the national anthem and a salute to veterans. And then during the show, we met a lot of car guys who again are big supporters of veterans. And we'd like to remind everybody, veterans are car guys too. A lot of veterans are car guys and a lot of car guys are veterans. And Gold Shield is here to help every veteran enjoy everything this country has to offer, including car shows. So everybody out there who listens to us, go to thegoldshield.us, thegoldshield.us, become an ambassador. If you have a business, become a business member and help us save the lives of veterans and help our veterans enjoy all the car shows that are out there for all of us. So until next week, we'll all say goodbye. We'll be back in 1 week with more, the latest and greatest car news and tips and history and anything else that we can find of interest to our audience.
Next
So-
week, I guess, is Joe Pep. I'm looking forward to that. He's a great guy.
Yes, and next
So
week
Pep-
we may have another great car museum coming on. So we
Okay.
have Joe Pep and another car museum. All right,
Awesome.
so until next week, Autolab is signing out.